you miss that relationship with him? Because he got sisters on his dad's side he's very close to. And I was like, well, I said, yo, if you want a relationship with him, I would happily step back. He's like, why do I want all that? He said, I'm not missing out on nothing on life. I got what I'm supposed to have. And I was like, damn, okay.
To hear that.
Because yeah, and just last week he cussed me out because he didn't like me. So it's just...
All right, boom. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads. I'm your host, Quan. I go by Q, of course. Being mediocre is a choice, and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. And on this episode of Mediocre Dads, I'm joined by a special guest named Eric. He is the host of his own podcast. So this means our podcast today is going to be a lot easier and a lot more simpler because now I didn't say now, but I have a guest who can, talk, we can have that conversation. It's going to flow a little bit better, because sometimes I get it, guys. Not all guests are as interesting as the ones before. And that's not to bash on my guests. That's not to bash on anybody. But trust me, I hear some of the feedback. I get it. I appreciate the feedback. But it's going to be a lot better. And it's going to be great. And we're going to enjoy this show. Before we get too deep into what we're going to talk about, I'm going to allow Eric to introduce himself. So Eric, without further ado, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey, how y'all doing, everybody? This is your little big brother, Eric G, from the podcast show, Random Thoughts with Eric G. Like I said, I talk about any and everything on my show. Leave no stone unturned. I am a black man trying to make it in America. That's what I am. That's how I describe myself. But pretty much, like I said, my brief breakdown, I'm a husband. I'm a father. I would say stepfather. It depends how you feel, but I'm a father, business owner, worker, community leader. I'm doing any and everything. And look, like I said in my introduction, me and my boy Q here, I don't know how I'm awake now, but I'm woke. And yo, let's go, man. I can't wait.
Awesome, man. Listen, I want to kind of really dive right into it because I really, what stood out to me, especially before we were talking, you mentioned being a stepfather, but not identifying yourself as a stepfather. And I think that's very important. But before we get to that point right there, what I want to start with is, what was your childhood like? What was your dad like? Or if you had a dad, I don't know what your background is. We didn't really talk about it before the show, which is great, but what was your childhood like?
I tell you about, I grew up kind of hard, man. I grew up with kind of hard life. I lost my mom when I was 7 years old.
Hey, sorry to hear that.
My mother was a single mother. She had 3 kids, me, my brother, my little sister. Sister. I'm sorry, I have a stuttering problem. Anyway, I lost my mom when I was 7. From there I moved with my grandmother, who basically taught me and my brother and my sister how to cook, clean, and she was a nurse, and we stayed with her until I think I was about 12 years old when she passed.
Oh, wow.
I got the chance to move. I moved with my dad right before I turned 13.
Mm.
And it was a whole different game situation. My dad was always there for me. I'm not gonna lie and say that he wasn't. My dad always came in and made sure that me, my brother, and my sister, even though we had different dads, he always came in and took us all together, and he did. If he did for one, he did for all.
Yeah.
So I respect him for that. Now, truthfully, when I got in my teen years, me and my dad did not get along.
Mm.
We could not get along. Like I said, because by then I have lost so much.
Yeah.
By the time I got with my dad. By then I'm not trying to hear what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Like you coming down on me, and to me, I'm like, you're breaking me down. I can't take you breaking me down, so I'm gonna fight back. So that was my thing was. As a teenager, we didn't get along for a long time. So I ended up moving out when I was 18, 19. Had a brief stint of being homeless.
Mm.
Became a homeowner at 20.
Awesome.
And from there, man, my life slowly changed. I went through a lot of ups and downs. I tell you, I went through a lot of ups and downs, but that's pretty much it, man.
And so growing
up, it was a lot.
Yeah, and my condolences, to you for you losing your mother at such a young age, and then your grandmother. With moving in with your dad at that point, at 13 years old, right? And mm-hmm. You said your dad had always been there, but excuse me, but sneeze.
I understand.
When moving in with your dad, I'm sure it was almost like a culture shock. You know what I mean? Like where this, you know, you had been accustomed to one or two things, right? Whether it was your mom or your grandmother, and then moving in with your dad, I'm sure there was this culture shock of just like everything changed, right? And I say that in a way like it's as if it's obvious, like everything changed, but what was that change like for you emotionally, right? And going through what you were going through, what was it like emotionally? And then especially, some would say mom, the mothers or your grandmothers provide that gentle love that we need, especially as young men, and then that fathers provide that man love, if you will, that almost that brotherly love of teaching us what men are supposed to do and how men are supposed to be. So what was that like for you, making that transition, if you will, at 13 years old, emotionally, especially?
So for me, I'm gonna be as honest as I can be. For me, I went to a brief stand up. Well, not brief. I'm be honest. I went to a stand up being depressed. Because coming through everything I came through, um, I I had my mother. My mother. I guess my mom always called me her like her lucky child because I almost died in birth, or whatever.
Oh, wow.
So I was always like sheltered around my mother. And when I lost my mom and moved my grandmother, my grandmother was more stern. She was old school. We in the South, so I had to go get my own switches. That's just how, you know. So I was more. My grandmother was more stern, but she was also had a hand of like love around us. Like even if her grandma fussed at us or whooped us, I always felt like my grandmother loved me. You know what I'm saying? But talking about my dad wasn't as physical as my grandmother, but his words would break me down because I never had nobody like spoke to me in a way that would break me down.
Yeah.
So I didn't and I always like mentioned I'm like, yo, we can't I can't deal with it. I'd rather for you to whoop me than to say to yell at me and break me down. I couldn't take it. So mentally it was a lot for me. Moving from one to the other. And but like I said, I give my dad his props because he did give me that male viewpoint of life. I like I say he was a stern dude. He was stern. He's a military dad. He was military. He was in Vietnam. My dad was like you had to get up in the morning, make the bed, make sure it's like it covers his wrinkle. I could tell his wrinkle from up under the So he was real strict, and I wasn't used to that. And and I guess like I said, I look it back at it now. I took it as no, he's being tough on me. He don't like me. So he don't like me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even though I look at it now as a parent, like he was trying to like get me to man up a little bit, trying to get me to understand life a little bit more. But back then I didn't see it. I didn't understand it. Like this man hate me. I don't like him. And like and prior to that, like I said, growing up, my dad coming in and out. My dad was coming in and out of my life. And he was taking us and do this and third. My dad came through as when I was a kid as like, oh, he's the best. This guy is picking me up on the weekends, taking me to go get ice cream. Yes. But then we living together. I'm like, yo, this man right here. Like,
this is not the same person. Where was the guy who was getting the ice cream?
Yeah, like, this ain't like I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, but but it was like you said, it was a culture shock a little bit. And also I had to realize now that I'm sorry, this way to split it. I had as a man, I had to see it from his point of view now. You know what I'm saying? I'm used to being by myself. Now I got to raise a child. And he's trying to figure out how to cope with doing it himself.
Yeah.
And I had to see that now, but back then I didn't see it. I didn't understand it. We didn't get along, and I thank God we got a great relationship now. But we damn sure didn't get along because I was not going to sit back and be quiet.
And that's that's one of those things where obviously as parents, as adults, we see the bigger picture. And our kids, though, especially depending on their age and adolescence, they don't see the bigger picture because it's tunnel vision. It's almost forced tunnel vision where you're just like, they don't see the bigger picture because they don't have the experience that ever required them to see the bigger picture. And so as parents, we're trying to lead our kids and mentor our kids and direct them on the path in which we think they should go down. And, it's difficult. And this, especially now, right? But that where it's difficult, where it's like, I could be a more gentler dad, if you will, but the world's not going to be nice to them. You know, the world is always, the world will be the first one. And when I say the world, right, I mean, you know, the outside entities that are not family, right? They'll cut you down at the knees so quickly. So, you know, trying to imagine, you know, as a parent, you sitting there thinking to yourself like, hey, I want the best for my kids, but everything can't be, you know, rainbows and sunshines, because the world's not going to give them a second chance. I'll give you second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, how many ever chances you need. I'll give you all those chances, but the world's not going to. And so if I can help you and instill it into you now, that hard work, that backbone and understanding that not everybody's going to like you and not everybody's going to be nice to you as much as you want them to be, you know, then just maybe you'll be more prepared than the person on your left or your right of you who are suffering because they're like, why doesn't everybody like me? Why isn't everybody doing what I say? They're supposed to love me. My parents love me. Why don't you love me? You know what I mean? And realizing not everyone is your parents. And that's so hard to accept, especially as a new adult going into the world. When I joined the Army, so many kids, and I say kids now because, you know, truthfully, that's what we were, even though we thought we were grown men and women at the time. 18, 19 years old, going to basic training, thinking like, nah, I'm a grown adult, you're not going to talk to me that way, you know what I mean? And then sure enough, realizing as we got older, like, oh no, I was not grown at all. You know what is kind of kicking the our grown man parts is when, so I'm 29 going on 30, and I have soldiers who are 18, 19. They range from 18 to 27 years old, right? 18, 19-year-old kid, you see them, how they move, how they act, how they interact with others, the things they say, how they carry themselves, and you're like, oh, that's what I look like. You know what I mean? That's what I look like when I was that age. You know, when at that age, you think you're intelligent, you think you sound good, you think, man, I can do anything, right? There's nothing that I can't do. I'm basically the new hotness, if you will. And then when you get older and you see it, you're like, oh, geez, that person sounds really stupid right now. Someone should save them. And you're like, someone should save them because they don't realize they look like they look like they're a clown right now. They got the makeup on, the nose, and they're doing all this thinking they look cool, but everybody around them is like, look at this clown. Oh my gosh.
But you know what though? You know what? Real quick though, and I look at I got my son is about to be 18. My oldest son is about to be 18, and I look at it is and even when he do things like I tell everybody, even though he's not biologically mine, he's mine.
Yes.
So I can see certain things that I did at that age coming back through, and it's like in your head at that age, you want to prove that you're an adult.
Yes.
No matter what you do, it's like you want everybody to see you as a man. Like I'm a grown man, I could do this. But and I told my mistake was at 18, 19 was going so hard in trying to prove that I'm an adult that I actually like neglected a lot of my own key values. I neglected great mental health. I neglected trying to like I feel like I missed out a lot on life when I was that age because I was trying so hell bent on proving to you that I am a man. I can do this.
Yeah.
That I actually made a lot of mistakes along the way, a lot of them, to get to that place for me to get like I'm the most kiddiest of damn adult you ever met in your life now. But this guy right here back at 19, 20, 21 was like, I was so serious.
Yeah.
I was so like hell bent on like, yo, I'm a man. I'm gonna work 2 jobs. I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna do this, that, and the third. And it didn't work out the way I thought.
Yeah.
And it was crazy, man. I just see it repeating over in him.
The development.
And I'm like, yo, trying to let him know, like, I see where you're finna go, but knowing that he's not gonna listen to you until he go through it.
And you know, it's crazy because I relate being a leader in the Army to being a parent, because there's so many similarities in everything and how whether you're being a parent and helping and leading your kids, or you're being a leader in the military and trying to lead soldiers to get them to understand what the desired end state is, or what the mission is, or whatever the case might be. And it's hilarious because I'll sit there and, you know, you try to give them this advice, you know, this wisdom that you've acquired of your years of walking on this earth, right? And you're like, hey, look, you know, I did that. when I was your age, and I was trying to do something similar to what you're doing. If it were me again, this is kind of how I'd go about it, right? But the best part is they'll look at you square in the face as if you have no idea what you're talking about, and it'd be like you wouldn't understand, right? Like you wouldn't get it because you're this age. You're not my age. Things have changed. Things are different. You wouldn't get it, and you're like. And you can see it on their face. It's written all over the face. Sometimes they're bold enough to say it to you. And you're just like,
Yeah.
All right, you're right. I don't get it. You know what? You go do what it is you feel like you need to do. You go take care of that, right? And listen, at the end of the day, when you, and sometimes you don't say this, but for me, sometimes I tell my soldiers, I'll say, hey man, I said, you go do what you feel is right. When you fail, all right, come back and talk to me and let's hash this out. I'm going to be here for you. If you succeed, I'm still going to be here for you. But I can tell you 9 times out of 10, you're going to fail. And it's not to belittle you. It's not to demean you. It's just to tell you like, hey, the way you're trying to go about it has been tried before. You are not the first person in the whole world, the first 18 and 19-year-old to walk this earth. You are not the first 18 and 19-year-old to join the army and have nothing and then have something for the first time and say, I'm going to do it better. I'm going to save my money. I'm going to still buy me that Dodge Charger, that Camaro. I'm going to buy whatever, but I'm still going to be able to save some money because I'm going to find a way to make sure insurance is cheap and gas is going to be okay. Like all these things, you think you're the first person to ever think of them. You think like, I'm a genius. I might as well be Albert Einstein. You know what I mean?
Come on.
And then by the time you're 25, you're sitting there and you're like, I wish somebody would have told me not to buy that car. And you know what I'm saying? And and there's that when someone's talking about you and you kind of get that buzz like, I feel like someone's talking about me right now, It's always you're like, man, I tried to tell you. I remember I had this dude, I told him, I said, hey man, he's like, yeah, I want to buy a Camaro. I was like, why? I was like, why are you going to buy a Camaro? I was like, you don't, I was like, do you need a Camaro? Like, I was like, if that's your dream car and you've been saving up, by all means, man, buy yourself a Camaro. Like, go all out. He's like, nah, I want a Camaro because I want to do the car clubs. I want to do all these things. I'm like, hey man, if it were me personally, I would probably wait, save up our money a little bit. We just joined the army. We ain't got money like that.
Right.
We just joined the army, right? Let's save the money up a little bit, and then let's have enough for maybe to cover it for about a year. Gas, and you got to take in consideration, right? He's like, nah, I kid you not. 2 weeks later, shows up in a Camaro. Now, when you show up in a Camaro in the army and you're a black soldier, I'm just gonna be frank with y'all. You immediately fit the stereotype of what it was expected of you. And most of these soldiers don't care. Right. It was like, hey, I don't don't care what people think of you in that regards. But the reality is at that age, you care what everybody thinks of you because that's the reason you bought the Camaro in the first place. So it's not sit here and act like you don't care. You do care because that's the reason you bought the car in the first place, because you care how people saw you. And so shows up in the car, right? And everyone, I kid you not, everyone around me, because everybody was telling them not to do it, literally puts their hands in their face and then we got this, they're called our first sergeant. You look at our first sergeant, he's like, I don't know who's in charge of that soldier, but someone go talk to him before I slash his tires, and he's gonna have to return that car. And like, you know what I mean? Sure enough, look, he kept the car, and it broke down on him, and he had to get rid of the car, and he had to get a Nissan Altima.
Come on.
He got a Nissan Altima. Let me tell you, that Nissan Altima was more reliable than his freaking Camaro had ever been. But he learned a lesson from it. Go ahead.
Well, you know what the problem is, though? You gotta let them make that mistake.
Yes,
you got to, because if we don't let them make that mistake, they not gonna learn.
Nope.
And I learned that as a father. Like, look, it's been so many times. Especially me and my youngest is the closest. My oldest is closer to my wife. Okay, so we all grew up when they all were up under me. So I love them. Hey, but it's so many times when I can hear them have a conversation and I can see how it's gonna end. I'm telling you, and I told, like, my youngest son has always been his friends, and I was like, yo, my son, he's 15, and I was like, yo, I don't think this person you hanging with is the right person for you. And he'd be like, man, no, this is my boy, man. Nah. I'm like, I'm telling you, that's gonna be the one that you gotta watch. No. I said, yo, all right, cool, whatever. I said, you know what? You're right. Go ahead, have fun. Come back a week later, they arguing. Then they got to a fight. I said, why y'all got to fight? I said, why y'all got to fight? man, I can't trust him. He did it. I think I told you this shit like 2 weeks ago, and you didn't listen to nothing. He said, man, I don't want to hear that. That's all right, cool. So, I could always see it with both of them. I could always see that, look, it's gonna go down wrong. But my thing is, they're not gonna listen because we're in that age where we all been in the age where you think you already know.
Yeah.
Like, shit, you can't tell me nothing. I'm gonna do what the hell I want to do. What's gonna happen to me? And everybody believes that. What's gonna happen to me? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Shit happens. So I like I said, I tell them a little bit of stuff, and say with my dad. My dad used to tell me things all the time. Where, like I said, I'm like, man, I ain't thinking what the hell he talking about. All he like to do is fuss. I ain't thinking all he want to do is talk shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Nah. My dad, like I said, my dad was military, so he's in your face like, the whole damn time, like spitting all on your lip. So, and I remember him telling me stuff like that all the time. He's like, man, one day you'll find out. One day you'll understand. And I'll never forget it. Like now, like even when I'm fussing my boys, I can hear the same words that he said to me coming out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear the exact same words that he said. I can hear even the way I act. Like don't get me wrong. It's certain things with my boys I did that my dad didn't do with me. Me and my dad never really spent time together.
Yeah.
We didn't never really spend time together. So my thing was, I'm gonna make sure I spend time with my boys. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna be there at the football games. I'm gonna make sure I'm at basketball games. I'm there. But the outcome is still the same. We gonna butt heads. We still ain't gonna agree. Like whatever. And like so many times I could just hear these words that he said and just pop out at them. I'm like, yo, I get it now. I understand. But I had to go through it myself to learn.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, they got to go through.
It's so hard. And I think the hardest part about that part in particular is the fact that you have to watch your kids fail, and you willingly have to watch them fail. And that sucks because you don't want to ever see your kids fail. But the fact is, at one point, you have to let go of the reins, metaphorically, and you just have to let them drive, and ride the carriage forward. And then you see where they take it. You can help redirect at times, right? But ultimately, what they do is what they do next is going to be based off of what their decision making is. And so one of the hardest parts about being a parent is realizing that you cannot control every facet of their life as much as you would like to. They are not your tools to kind of allow you to redo life as a young person. You know what I mean? They are their own individual person, our own people who are going to have to make their path for themselves. And you have to be ready. You have to be ready for when they come back, because they will always come back. Oh my goodness, they will always come back. When they come back and they say, I need your help. I need your help, Dad. This happened and this happened, and then this is happening and this I'm going through this. And as you're sitting in the back of your mind, smiling, thinking like, I told you that, I told you that, I told you that. Remember, I told you that. You laughed in my face when I told you that. Man, you were ready to fight me when I told you your friend was going to stab you in the back. All right, you know what I'm saying? While all that's happening, you come back and you say, all right, listen. So what's the game plan? What's the next step, right? What are we trying to do here? Where do you want to go from here? What's the next step? And taking humility and giving them grace, because, man, you're right. Trust me, I'm the type of person who wants to tell people when remind people they're wrong, especially when I told them how it was going to go and they didn't listen. And I'll be like, well, one, I told you so. And they're stomping, just like, whatever, right? And then two, cool, let's figure out how we move forward from this. So it's again, I do that with I have to do that with my soldiers, because it always ends up happening. And then I do it with my kids now. My oldest, she's 6, and she's just like me. And so I am trying my best, at times to give her something, or give her the things in which I felt I didn't have, right? Now, just because I feel like I didn't have them doesn't mean I didn't have them. I just didn't know how to recognize that I had those things. What do I mean by that? My dad was, it always seemed like he was so quick to get angry, and always get angry and just want to be like, I'm picking back up where I left off. I would feel like I missed out. I didn't have things. Like, for example, I would feel like my dad didn't give me grace, or didn't give me the compassion I thought, because I just thought, man, he's just getting mad at me all the time. But then now, fast forward to me being a dad, and I remember there's, it always seems like I'm getting on my daughter because she's just not, it's not clicking, you know what I mean? And I'm always doing this thing that my dad would do, right after he would get on me and let a few minutes simmer down, or whatever the case might be. He would call me over, give me a hug, and squeeze me like I've never been squeezed before, tell me he loves me, and say, hey, listen, it's not because I don't love you. It's just because there are consequences to everything that we do. And you have to understand the lessons that I'm trying to teach you will not be taught to you and cannot be taught to you when you're already out there expected to know these things. They have to be taught here. And I didn't at the time, I'm not listening to anything he's saying when he's saying these things, right? Because I'm just like, nah, he doesn't get it. He doesn't love me. He just wants to punish me. I'm just like, I'm just a punching bag to him, like, cause man, he's always mad at me. I'm saying, just, being a disgruntled teenager. And then now I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, my goodness, that man had so much patience. Cause if I had to deal with me, cause I'm dealing with me now, I'd be so upset all the time. I'd be stressed out. I'd be bald. I literally would just be like, man, you're making me tear my hair out. You know what? Just go sit down somewhere and leave me alone because you're stressing me out. You know what I mean? But I realized that I had it. I had the entire time. I just didn't think I had it because I wasn't ready to receive it at that time. And 9 times out of 10, that's usually what it is. Our kids are not ready to receive what it is we're trying to give them or what it is we're trying to teach them. And so it's scary. But you have to let them take the reins and let them walk their path, because when they do it and when they're able to figure it out for the most part, and they come back to you, say, hey, how do I do this? And whatever the case might be, you will see the growth happen a lot faster than having a 35-year-old who's just figuring it out at 35, rather than when most people figure it out, if you will, when they're 22 to 26.
Right. With me, it was like with me, I guess I figured out life a little more quicker because I went through a lot.
Yeah.
But I do remember, like you said, when I was living with my dad, and I was like you, I didn't take in what he was saying to me. I couldn't take it in, and like I said, it could be basically part of because I went through a lot already. You know what I'm saying? I could be emotionally and mentally and, like I said, sensitive, whatever you want to call it. Like, I couldn't take it. I'm like, yo, man, why is this person breaking me down more than I'm already is? And I'm already depressed. I don't know what I want to do. I'll be honest with you, contemplated suicide a few times. So I didn't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? At that time. So listen to him was not the option. And I didn't feel like I could speak to him. But I had to look back on them now, man. I look back on a lot of things now is we always want to give our child better than what we had.
Yeah.
So we don't get our kids better than we had. And so I look back on them, the issues, like the way I'm speaking to my kids now, I'm trying to give them a little bit better life than I had. I also realized that my dad was giving me better than what he had.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? His dad wasn't around as much. So he lost his mom at a young age. So a lot of times he used to see himself within me. So he will always speak to me as if he's speaking to himself as a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I had to realize that now. And like even now, I realize that looking at my boys. When they get on my nerves, Lord knows they get on my damn nerves. I sit back, I had to speak to them, but I had to step back a little bit too. I'm like, look, they gotta learn. They gotta make their own way. They gotta figure it out a little bit. Because me always making it easy for you is not gonna be the option.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I used to say the same thing you saying. When I first met my wife, my sons was just turned 8 and 10. When I first met them. And I was always telling them, like, look, the world don't love you. Once you leave out these doors, leave out these 4 walls, you gotta deal with the world. And at that time, we were dealing with police brutality, a lot of murders and stuff like that. I'm like, yo, the world don't love you. So I'm trying to give you the tough love because you sheltered. I'm trying to break it out so you understand.
Yeah.
But I had to soften my approach with them, because if you always coming at a kid with aggression and your frustration with them, they're gonna irritate you.
Yeah.
You're always coming at them with that. They're not gonna listen to you. They're not gonna understand it. So I kind of softened my approach a little bit. Now I'm not saying that I'm the softest dad, no, but I try to soften my approach with them and speak to them directly. Look, I'll put them both to the side. Like, look, hey, Tay, this is what you're doing. This is what you need to do. Whether you hear me or not, this is what you need, because eventually it's gonna pop up in the back of their head when they're going through it. It's like, it been plenty times, Q, like I said, it been plenty times when you're going through like the BS and you can hear your dad in the back of your head say, I tell you this, just like it happens. It happens.
It's always when I'm saying what my dad would say, and I'm thinking that I'm just saying something super prolific when I'm really not. I'm just saying what he would tell me, right? And what I mean by that is, for example, I tell my daughter, we're having right now an issue with the listening, you know what I mean? And getting down packed of like, hey, if mom and dad say something to do something, that means you need to do that, right? Or the talking
Right.
back, where it's, let me explain to you this elaborate answer and all these things, when it's like, no, all I need is you acknowledge that you understand first, and then we can talk about it on the back end. But first, I need you to acknowledge that you understand, because once you acknowledge you understand, I can trust that you can go do what I need you to do. And so right now we're having that, and I find myself saying this thing that my dad was always saying. He goes, look, don't make me repeat myself. I'm always repeating myself. If I have to repeat myself, we're gonna have a problem. Right. And now I'm saying that, I'm like, oh, this is something I came up in the Army. Now, this is something I heard from my dad all the time. It was like, hey, I shouldn't have to repeat myself. I shouldn't have to repeat myself. And then realizing like, oh, I'm saying it. I'm like, wait, I should repeat myself, because, I'm putting my expectations, because like you said, like similar, like you were saying, like I see my daughter, how I see my daughter, I see myself. And so seeing my younger self sitting there right in front of me, basically, like, you can see that I can see she needs help and she needs guidance, and she's trying to get it right. But I don't want her to experience the world what I experienced from the world, which was, I thought I was doing it by myself. I thought I had to do it by myself. And so I want her to always know, like, hey, you should hear it from me before you hear it from somebody else, because if you hear it from somebody else and you don't accept it, I don't know what's going to happen. Or I can't always guarantee you there's going to be someone who's going to be willing to tell you these things that I'm telling you. And so I'm only trying to lead you, but it's so difficult because you don't want to listen to me in the first place.
And that's me so much, bro. Like my both my sons, like I said, have different approach to everything. My youngest son is the one, he's gonna argue you down.
Yeah.
No matter what you say, he got a rebuttal for whatever you say. And he takes it like a debate. And that's how my dad is. My dad is a debater. He's gonna argue you down with it. So I had to try to figure out my approach. My youngest son was different. My oldest son is quiet, so he'll just stare at you, but he's thinking about other things in the midst of him just staring at you. So you got to know how to to catch his attention real quick.
Yeah.
If you don't, he done zoned out in the middle of the conversation.
Oh yeah.
So I understand completely, bro. Like it's a lot.
So with making that transition, so you said you met your wife now 8 years ago, and when you met her two young boys, 8 and 10 years old, and I imagine, as things progress, you obviously knew you're like, hey, I'm gonna marry this woman, I'm gonna be with this woman for the rest of my life, right? What was that transition like before you guys, I say transition, what was it like before you guys got married, and being, kind of introducing yourself as in that role, stepping more into the role of dad? And then what was it after you got married, when it was kind of like where you are now expected to take on the role, if you will, of as acknowledged as dad completely?
Well, it was kind of, I'm gonna say this right here. I'm a kids person, so I was a mentor. I had an organization where I work with kids, so I attract to kids. I love like talking to them and playing with them, and that was my thing. I get really emotionally attached. So before me and my wife got together, I just came out of a bad relationship, and my ex-girlfriend had a daughter, and I was real close to. When I got with my wife, it was weird because I knew her sons, because their sons was actually going to the school I was mentoring. So I knew of us. I seen her sons. The difference was, when I first came in, I didn't want to meet her sons unless we were serious. That was my first thing. I didn't want to have no proper introduction to them. Like, if me and her was just kicking it or whatever, I'm not trying to meet your sons, because I don't want to have that. I want to have that emotion with them.
Yeah.
Or have them see their mothers like with another man, and I didn't want that. So at the beginning, I was kind of like staying away. But as I met her, man, and got to know her, I see myself, like I said, I really like this woman, and for me to like this woman, I gotta love her kids. And I wanted to. My goal was, especially at the beginning, was to form a relationship with her kids as well as her.
Mm-hmm.
So my first year or two, even though it was hard, my oldest son was like, I'm not trying to hear none of this.
Yeah.
But me and him was honestly the closest at the beginning. It's weird because it's the way opposite now. Because he's like, I ain't thinking with you. But when he was 10 years old, I was like, look, let me just take him with me everywhere I go, and I'm gonna speak to him and talk to him and get to know him. And that's what I did. I took him everywhere I go. I put him in football. I got him started playing sports. And then my youngest son had a relationship with his real dad. He was like not trying to hear me at all.
Yeah.
And we all became. I tried my best to just try to form a relationship with them. And even before me and my wife became a couple, I actually pulled them to the side. I pulled both of them to the side, and I was like, "Look, I like your mom like me. I love y'all. Do you think that would be okay?" And my wife like, "Just don't do this." I'm like, "I'm doing it." So I'm like, "Do you think it'd be okay if I date your mother?" I asked both of them, and they were like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And, yeah, whatever. And like they was 8 and 10 years old. Like, okay, that's what you want to do. Ew, that's nasty. But as time went on, man, over the 5 years before we got married, I tried my hardest to work on a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted them, and I told them, I used to always tell them that, look, I'm not your dad. I'm not trying to play your dad. I just want y'all to see me as, a father figure, a man is going to be here for you, regardless of anything. I was more stern at the beginning, because they were small. I was more stern. So we had a it was a complicated thing in the beginning, but as we went on, I seen that our growth and we kind of formed a family even before marriage. We was forming that family. They, like I said, I'm at their football games. I'm at their basketball games. We on vacations together. We was spending time together. We laughing, we joking. I'm picking them up, playing with them like they are my boys. Now the difference was, and I'm gonna be honest with you, especially my oldest. My oldest was so used to being my wife's protector, and he was so used to, just being up under my wife. Like I said, he loved her. It did form a shift came when me and my wife actually got married. Not got married, got engaged.
Yeah.
Even though I spoke to them separately, like, would y'all be okay with getting married? And they was excited at the beginning. They both was excited. But when my oldest son realized, my mom is really finna get married to this guy. I seen that he was like, I don't know if I'm ready for her to get married. I don't know if I'm ready for that. And I never forget it, the night that we got engaged, and I seen him, like, he actually broke down. I never get it. He actually was, you can see he was starting to get kind of like somber.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yo, what's going on, little man? And I said, I thought we love each other. We have a great family, whatever. And he was like, no, I'm fine. And I was like, yo, no, something ain't right. And he's like, what, 14 at the time. And, 13, 14. I'm like, okay. I pulled him to the side, and it was like, yo, I can see him wrong. And I could see him breaking down and crying. And he was like, I'm like, what's wrong? He was like, no, I'm fine. And it took me to realize that he's not used to his mom actually. He thought his mom was leaving him by getting married. And I was like, yo, that's not happening. And we had to have a conversation. And I remember he pulled me to the side, and he pulled me to the garage. Why? Anyway, he pulled me to the garage, and he looked at me, man, and I'll never forget this, right, man. He looked at me, man. He shook my hand and gave me a hug.
That's awesome.
And it was like he accepted it. Don't get me wrong, some days he still don't like this, but he shook my hand. He gave me a hug, man. I was like, yo, I knew he didn't say nothing. I know what he's thinking, and because I see so much of me and him. He shook my hand. He gave me a hug, man. I was like, yo, okay, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. We still knocked heads, but it was like, we're gonna be okay. After we got married, my sons, it was kind of weird. My youngest son became way more like, that's my boy. That's like, this boy's he's up under me. I can lay down. I'm laying in the bed. He's up, like he lays in the bed with me as a big ass 50-year-old jump in my bed now. My oldest son became more like not reserved. My oldest son like, now I'm about to be a man now. I'm growing up now. I'm going to be a man. So he comes to me now, and it's crazy. He comes to me now more for advice on women. Yeah. So when he go into a situation with girls, for real, he would definitely come to me, and we have those conversations. And I love that now, that like, even when I feel like, man, this Negro ain't thinking about me, he comes to me randomly. He comes to me randomly and he be like, yo, I need to talk to you, or yo, I need you to like help me with something. And it makes me feel like I'm the most important man in the world right here. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing I love. I love like even when we don't agree all the time, when he comes to me and we had those conversations, okay, now I know why I'm here. Now I know why I'm in their life. And I love both of them like that.
That's awesome, man.
Thanks.
It's crazy because you have such a huge impact on their life, you know, before and
Right.
even especially now, right? And it takes some time to realize that there is an impact, because I'm sure at times there was that, you know, that question in the back of our minds is, am I being impactful with them? Or am I going to be the dad that they say they can proudly talk about, like, hey, I'm, you know, that's my dad. My dad's awesome. Or are they going to be to say like, nah, he's all right. You know, he did what he did. He did what he could. He married my mom, and you know, this is kind of how it happened. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Because for some kids, that's what it's like. You know, and it's not everybody, but for some, that's what it's like. And it's crazy because I can see the passion in behind what you're talking about, and the emotion behind what you're talking about, and I can tell that your kids feel the same way, similar, where it's like, you know, they're like, no, I'm proud. I'm proud of him. He is my dad. He does something. He does awesome things. He takes care of me, and he helps me when I need, because at the end of the day, our kids want our help. They really want our help. Believe it or not, when we sit there and think, man, my kids hate me, they're like, no, they want our help. And I think it's so awesome. Like, you know, it's amazing because truthfully, so I said it before the show, I was adopted when I was 2, and you know, my parents, who I call my parents, who I know as my parents, right, and believe to be my parents, they gave us a lot. You know, they didn't give us everything, like we weren't spoiled or anything, but they gave us a lot. And so growing up, and even when I joined the Army and I left home, if you will, I kind of always thought, like, you know, like I was still missing out on what it was to actually have parents that knew you, if you know what I mean, like knew you, because you know we shared DNA, right? I thought because if we share DNA, that means for sure 100% I know that this is my parents and they know I'm their kids, and we understand each other now, and we can, you know, we figure it out like one big family on a TV show. And the craziest thing that happened, it was almost like an epiphany, where I was like, I came to the realization is a lot of my mannerisms and the things that I do come from the dad that I don't share DNA with at all. Right? Like, you know, some of the things that I do, how I carry myself, I talk, my jokes, they come from him, because I learned them from him. I learned how to be who I am from him. I just didn't accept it at the time, because I thought if I do that, then I'm betraying the parents that never knew me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm betraying them somehow, some way, even though they've never known, they don't know who I am. I'm 16, 17 years old. How are they going to, they don't know Quan at 16, 17 years old. You know what I mean? They barely knew me when I was a baby. So it's crazy, because like, even for me, like, it's, you know, some people will say, some person will say to me like, oh, so you're adopted parents. And I'm like, I have to think about it. Like, adopted parents, my parents, you know what I mean? Like, for me, it's natural. It's like, no, they're my parents. They're not my adopted parents. They're my parents. That's who my parents are. Right. But like, when I tell that story, people are like, oh, the people who adopted you, they're your adopted parents. Like, they see the separation. For me, I don't, you know, and that's just, that is how I'm able to tell, like, nah, like, man, I love them. I appreciate everything they do, even though at the time, you know, I wasn't receiving. I wanted to ask, so you mentioned, you know, there, he kind of broke, when your oldest son broke down, especially right when you knew you guys were getting engaged and having that conversation. What was it like, in a way, for you to, was it that your first real, if you will, conversation of like, hey, this is me having to step in, if you will, and be the dad that I've always wanted to be, if whether or not you wanted to be a dad, but is this is the first real opportunity I have to succeed, to be the dad that they need? Or was it, have you had these deep, impactful conversations before? What was that like?
So, I'm still best want to explain it, man. Yes and no. We have had conversations before, but there were small kids. So yeah, we had those conversations. But my thing is, I feel like this was a real conversation, though.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't one I was prepared for. because in
Gotcha.
my head, everything's gonna be lovely. Everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna be a one big happy ass family. Like, oh my God, we're going on vacation.
Yep.
But I kind of wasn't expecting them to. I wasn't expecting them not to be excited.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting him not to be cool with it. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting him to feel away, because prior to it, we had a conversation about like, yeah, we're gonna get engaged. And like, oh yeah, great.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't expecting that. And when we had a conversation, it was like, yo, I was like, oh shit, this is the change.
Yeah.
This is where things finna change, because now I'm getting to know how he really feel, instead of him giving me what he think I would like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's telling me the truth. Now, don't get me wrong. I knew it took a good while, even after we got married, for him to be like, yo, we cool, because he had never acknowledged me as his stepdad. At least I was always either his mama's boyfriend or his mama's husband. like this is exactly how they introduce him. Like, oh, this is just my mama's husband. This is my mama's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hear him say, yo, this is my stepdad, or he be like, yo, this is my dad right here. Like when they introduce, like when we go out into his school and they introduce me to both of my boys introduce me to people. They be like, yo, this is my dad or this is my stepdad. You know what I'm saying? And it makes me feel amazing, because I know I go over the top. I go over the conversation, but
no, you're good.
So like I'm go back to a little bit what you're saying. When you say that you didn't see your adopted parents as anything other than your parents.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see them as anything other than my sons, but in my back of my mind, I was like, one day their real dads is gonna come back, and I'm nobody. I'm not gonna. I can't say anything, and they're not gonna rock with me anymore. They're not gonna, you know what I'm saying, see me as a dad. And that's always was a fear of mine. So like back in my head, like one day they're just gonna say, "Eric, you're not my dad for real," and go. You know, and to see even their parents, their dads will come back every once in a while, but when they do, they still be like, "Yo, this is still my dad right here. This is still the man that I wakes up to every day."
Yeah,
like and I love it. And now they at the age now they vocal about it, so they're like, "Yo, this is still my dad right here. You're not gonna run over what he said."
Yeah,
and I love it. So you know what I'm saying, but. Yeah, it's a good process.
Yeah,
it's a long process.
No,
man.
100%. You know, it's a thing that you realize that it's not going to happen overnight. As much as we would like it to, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. And so I wanted to ask then, you know, we're kind of getting into it. So their dad, I don't know if they both share the same dad. No, okay. So their dads then, are they still in their life in some regards, in some way?
And I'm not trying to get too big. And
you don't have to if you do not want to, but yeah.
Well, one yes, the other one no.
Okay.
So my oldest is not there at all, but he comes when it's convenient.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I got you.
My youngest dad is definitely in his life, and he has a relationship with his dad, and I'm not gonna say he don't. He always had a relationship with his dad. But their connection and our connection are two different type of connections.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's how it is. And
kind of that was going to lead me to my next question then is, so realizing, you know, they have someone, you know, you like you said, you don't share the DNA, but you know, you stepped into that role as dad, and it's hard to sometimes have the conversations because, you know, you don't want to call someone out and say, hey, oh, you're just a stepdad. But the reality is, no, you're not just a stepdad. You are their dad. For a lot of kids, that is what it is. You are their dad. Right. And it's hard because, you know, some people want to be like, well, you don't know what the situation is. And you're right, I don't. But like sometimes we can call, it's like a spade is a spade. You know what I'm saying? We can say it and sit there and be like, nah, listen, like the reality is, I did it, and I'm the only one. I'm still here. I'm the only one who's going to be here, right? And while I encourage them to have relationships with the dad that they share DNA with, it does not change the fact or my role when they have that relationship, you know.
Yep.
And so for you, especially with your younger son, do you ever feel like you might butt heads? or it's like you're like, hey, like I'm, and I don't want to sound like he has more power over you, or one has more power over the other. But like, does it ever seem like, hey, I'm overstepping, he's overstepping? You know what I'm saying? Like, does it ever feel like there's that breakdown of communication, or is it like, hey, we understand each of our roles as much as we possibly can?
Okay, so me and my youngest son's dad, we just got to that place where we're like, okay, we understand each other's roles. We
Gotcha.
understand it. Okay, we just got there. I had like, I'm the type of guy like, look, you ain't gonna disrespect me, and you definitely ain't gonna disrespect my wife. So, we just got to that place where we have an understanding.
That's awesome.
But it took a long. I mean, with both of their dads, I'll be honest with you, I've literally spoke to both of their dads and look, I'm gonna let you know this right here. I don't care what you feel, how you don't like it, what you do. I'm here. They're gonna be with me. If you don't like it, oh well. I'm gonna fuss. I'm gonna be in their face. I'm gonna yank their ass up when they need to get yanked up. Like I'm not gonna. But it's not gonna change the fact that I love them kids as if they were mine. I love the hell out of them. It's nothing that's gonna change that. I've literally had this conversation with both their dads.
That's awesome.
And I had to tell him, and it been times like me, especially my youngest dad, we came to blows a few times.
Oh.
He never run across that boundary. But anyway, we got close to that a couple times.
Yeah.
But I had to tell him that, look, man, regardless of how you feel, I'm not gonna leave their life. I'm not gonna abandon them. They're gonna be mine. They are mine. You know what I'm saying? Whether you like it or not. You know what I'm saying? And it got to the place where my sons even would speak up to him. I'm like, look, hold on, wait a minute. You're not going to say anything about him. And I love that feeling. I love that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, me and my youngest, most definitely, my oldest son, he's like, his dad was like, look, I know that's your son, so I might step back a little bit, but I just want to check on it once in a while.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, cool, do that. I understand. And my youngest, like I said, his dad was like, hey, yo, man, you his dad. I'm his dad. Like, it's fine. It's fine. So we at that place now. Well, we ain't got to have no beef. You know your role. I know mine. I'm going to respect him as his dad for real. I'm never going to disrespect him. Especially not. And I told both of them, I'll never disrespect their dads in front of them.
Yeah.
They would never hear me say that. I would never. You ain't going to never hit that. The conversation me and their dads have in real life, they would never know about that.
Right.
But yeah, I would never disrespect their dads, and I'm hoping their dads never disrespect me in front of them. But
yeah, and you can't control what unfortunately we can't control what other people do, especially other people we expect to be adults. So but what I'll conclude with it is I think that we have gotten so infatuated with the title that comes along with in life, right? Whether it's professionally, personally, right? These titles that go along with these. I'm a dad. I'm a mom. I'm a CEO. I'm a CFO. With like these titles that come with in just part of life that kind of help people understand who we are, but for so many people it defines who we are. And so I think it's one of the best things in the world is one to be called a dad. But everybody thinks to be a dad, I have to have some DNA relationship to this person in order to be called a dad. And I always tell people, I said, you don't, because I'm telling you, my dad is my dad. And there's nothing, no ifs, ands, buts about it. The person who, I won't get vulgar, but the person who which I came from, didn't want anything to do with me when I was young, and didn't want anything, or younger, didn't want anything to do me with when he found out who I was, more or less, on Facebook at 16. Never spoke to me, has never spoken to me a day in my life. And so that to me, and he has like 5 or 6 other kids. Like when we were friends on Facebook at one point, he would see pictures of him with all this large family. And I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, that could have been me. Right? That could have been me, but I'm not. You didn't want that. And then even though we're friends on Facebook, you don't reach out, you don't say hello, and I don't know what the rationale behind that is. It is what it is, but it doesn't change the fact that I know who my parents are, and we can have.
Ask a question real quick, bro.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I want to ask you a question. Because I know on one side, I know how it is to be that parent.
Mm-hmm.
How was that situation with your dad? Like speaking to him, like he's like I know you said at one point in time you kind of wanted that relationship with your real dad.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that on him? Did he ever come to you and speak to you about that,
My birth
or
dad?
what? Yeah, well, not that your birth dad, I guess your adopted dad, but I'm not
Yeah.
saying
Oh,
that
like
your
I
dad.
got what you're saying. So yes and no, right? And so
Okay.
uh weird territory for both of us, because
Mm-hmm.
one, he's talking to twins, right? And so, and then two, it's trying to figure out and navigate, like, okay, what can I say? Because I don't want to push them away, and I don't want to make it seem like because I've been here, I've in facto or de facto taken that place of their dad. But he wanted to, I think he was waiting for that recognition from us to say, hey, to acknowledge, hey, you are, matter of fact, who we determined as our dad. And the conversation it was weird. I just be frank with you. It was a weird conversation. You know what I mean? Because it was asking us, how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about, your knowing who your dad is, for more or less, but he's not reaching out. Like, what is that? What are you going through your mind? What are you guys trying? What are you thinking about that? Is there something I can do to kind of maybe help build that relationship with you, and or help develop that relationship so you guys have some form of relationship, like, you know what I mean? He's trying to figure out where he can where he's at in that mold, or in this formula, this weird formula, if you will, of like birth dad, adopted dad, but adopted dad that raised me since I was since I could barely walk, and now I'm walking, I'm a grown man, like, what I'm saying, and giving me everything in my life, like, where does he fit in that? You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
me and my brother didn't do a good job at reaffirming him at the time, because again, young men, we don't want to express our emotions because we think that's what men are supposed to do. We don't talk about our emotions, we just bury them deep inside. It wasn't until later on that I remember I had kind of like a personal conversation with my dad, and I was just like, I was like, yeah, no, you're it. You know what I mean? Like, you are it. Like, there was no one else ever in this world who can take your place. I have best friends that I've had since I was in 6th, 7th grade, right? And their dads they know who I am, obviously, and then they know my parents. And I've learned things from them, but it doesn't mean they took over for my dad. You know what I mean? I just learned other things from other men in my life. And ultimately, I think that's kind of where it boils down to, is being able to acknowledge and accept that, like, we are going to be, we can learn so many things from different men and mentors who come into our life, whether they're our dad or not. And, I learned so much from my dad, and I'm proud to call him my dad. I tell people all the time, I brag about my dad all the time. My dad's a pilot. He flies for Southwest, and I'm like, he's been flying since I could remember. You know what I mean? And
Okay, cool.
I tell people all the time, like, I brag about my dad all the time, and I'm like, they're like, man, I'm trying to get a flight here, blase blase. I was like, oh, couldn't be me. I can fly anywhere I want for free right now if I wanted to.
Well, hold on, wait. Tell your dad you got a good friend now named Eric, and my anniversary coming up in October, so you need to. Anyway,
and it's crazy because I'm like, because people are like, oh, that's your dad, like, and it's crazy because I don't, I usually don't just like lead with I'm adopted, right? It's not until my dad shows up or people see a picture of my family and they're like, oh, who's that? I'm like, that's my dad, and he's like, oh yeah, that's my dad. Like, you're like, I didn't know that. Yep. Look, there's me and my brother. We're the two black kids, and the other in the picture. They're like, I know who you are, but like, who are the rest of these people that you are matching with in colors and the pants? And like, those are my family. That's my sister, my brother, that's her husband. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's great, and I love it because, like I said, I'm so proud of my dad that he had found a way to be able to take on the role and the mantle of my dad, and then acknowledge at one point, be able to, maybe me and my brother didn't verbally acknowledge it the way he would like to hear it, but he knew, especially now he knows, we acknowledge that is my dad. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. That is my dad.
and a lot of times too, I think that we don't I mean, even because in the back of our heads, let's be real. In the back of our heads, we know we're not your real father.
Mhm.
We know that. I know that. And I told my sons, like though I came in the picture, I was always like, yo, I want y'all to know I'm not your dad. I get it. I understand. I want y'all to know I'm not your dad. I'm not trying to take his place. But it's over time I've had to be like, oh, these are still my kids. These are my kids now. Like
Mhm.
it took a lot for me to get to that place. Like, yo, these are my kids. I'm gonna protect you like you're my kids. And I remember one situation, and I would always have this conversation with my sons or me and my wife, because I would always tell my wife that I feel like maybe they don't connect to me because I'm not their real dad.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. And I remember one day me and my oldest son came into our room and we was talking about a whole bunch of stuff. Because his dad had started showing up to his football games. And I said, man, look, man. Part of me, I was getting mad, but like, man, you know what, fuck it. I can't say anything because this is dad. I can't,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I said, he's showing up because my son doing good at football, man. Like,
Mhm.
anyway, but I remember one day I brought my oldest son came to the room and I was like, yo, do you want that relationship with him? You know what I'm saying? And I would happily step back, you know what I'm saying? And I let you form that relationship. I said, I don't want to step on his toes, you know, whatever. And he was like, no, man. He said, no. He said, I'm happy with what my life is now.
Yeah.
He said, I got my mom, I got you. He says, what I'm missing. And I was like, yo, I didn't know what to say. Like the first damn time he shut me the hell up. I was like, okay, all right, cool.
Look at the wife. You're like, you got something to say?
Yeah, he said that. I know, and he dealt with. I said, are you missing something? Are you missing out? Like, do you miss that relationship with him? Because he got sisters on his dad's side. He's very close to. And I was like, well, I said, yo, if you want a relationship with him, I would happily step back. He was like, why do I want all that? He said, yeah, I'm not missing out on nothing on life. I got what I'm supposed to have. And I was like, damn, okay.
To hear that.
Because yeah, and just last week he cussed me out because he didn't like me. So
oh man, that's fun. That's awesome. You know, because it's one moment it's that, and it gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling of like you're doing what you're supposed to, and then maybe not even 2 hours later they're like, man, you ain't shit, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm.
We go in. We go in. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Me, and I'm gonna tell you, it's funny, and I always tell you right here because everybody on the outside looking in, you think I'm the most awful dude to my boys because I talk big. I don't know if you want me to cuss or not, but
You good?
I really talk big shit. I talk big shit to them,
Mhm.
but they learn to talk shit back.
Yes.
And they both know like. If I'm gonna say something, they got a comeback for everything. They like, I'm gonna hit them back again.
Mhm.
And I always do a point system. I do a point system, Miles.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if you say something that make a person like stumble, you got a point. That was fun. That was fun. And like, because they'll catch me off guard with some shit that make me fun. I'm like, give my point.
Oh man,
and
that's awesome.
But yeah, man. But they do hit me sometimes with that. And like I said, I tell my wife all the time, man. Yo, I didn't just pick you. I picked them too.
Yeah.
And then forever in my life, man, I don't give a place. I don't give a how much they don't like me. I'm gonna be the one. I'm gonna talk shit at the damn wedding. They already know that. Yep. I'm gonna be there. So they already know it. So it's not even a word.
That's awesome. So coming to a close here. So you mentioned in the beginning, right? So you have your podcast, Random Thoughts with Eric G, and you said you have your business, you have a group. Can you kind of explain a lot of like what all of those things are for you, right? What especially you're a father, right? But you got all those things. This is your a means of providing in a way, right? So like, can you kind of explain what those things are and what they'll mean to you, whatever the case might be?
All right, so let me try to break down. I wear 27 hats. I have a regular job. I'm a glass maker. I make a lot of jars, bottles, whatever. That's my regular job. The podcast Random Thoughts with Eric G is a podcast that I've been doing going on 4.5 years now.
Oh, that's awesome.
I started like everybody else during COVID, trying to figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wanted to go to school for journalism and broadcast journalism and stuff like that. And my goal was always write for the news. My goal was always write for the newspaper. I did get a chance to write for the newspaper through another organization I have called the Green Roads Foundation, which I became a mentor and going back for the schools and whatever. And I got a chance to write for the newspaper. And I remember that I talked to the editor one day, and me and her was talking. I was like, I want to be able to branch out and make a show where I can speak about what's really going on in the city, what's going on, like people, the talent, because my community is known for negativity and violence.
Yeah.
I want to show the positivity in my city, so I would love to do a show one day where I can do that and at least speak my mind and say what I want to say, and birth random thoughts came from that. It really started off as a funny Facebook post when I was doing every day I had something on my mind, like random thought, I got gas, like it's just something. And from there I was like, oh, look, let me make it to a actual show, which I turned into going to my seventh season, which will be in September, where I speak about music, I speak about artists. I bring my kids on, I bring my wife on. We talk about world topics. I brought my kids on one time. We talked about being a step parent.
Yeah.
I talked about, like, how did you feel about me? How did you like me? I didn't like you. I don't like we go back and forth. We talk. I brought my sons on. We had those open conversations. We talk about it. I brought my wife on. We have conversation about problems in our relationship. We bring on different individuals. We bring on musicians. I tell personal stories. That was my show. My business outside of this is, like I said, is the Green Rose Foundation, which is the organization. Also have Big Boy Greens. I'm a caterer. Have that. My wife is a vegan baker, so she have cold and vegan treats. So I'm always promoting that.
That's awesome.
And then, like I said, I'm also having another organization I'm in, which we do work for the community called Down Home NC, which we are in the process now of helping help with the voting for the new governor we have coming up.
Oh, awesome.
Governor election. So we're in the process of helping that out, of picking a person we're sponsoring. So that's mainly what I do. Like I said, as a father, both my sons has just started their football season. I got a 12th grader and I got a 10th grader, so these Negroes are gonna have me busy.
Oh man, football practice, football games, and you're just like, oh man, time.
And it's funny because this year is the first year that both my sons are varsity players. And I get to see them, and my youngest son is blocking for my older son.
Oh, okay.
So I can't wait to see this right here. I can't wait to see them play together. It's the first time they played together since they was like in the Pee Wee League.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see this. Yeah, man. So that's pretty much it, man. I'm everywhere. I'm doing everything. Like I said, I sleep probably 3 hours.
Man, I feel that.
I'm doing it.
That's awesome. Where would be the best place for people to find you if they want to, talk to you or potentially book you? Where's the best place people can go to find you?
Not a problem. You can find me on Instagram at Random Thought with Eric G. Anytime you want to book with me, anytime you want to ask questions, just check that out. Also go to my TikTok page, where you can hear my real random thoughts when I be just ranting, just me sitting in my car, just doing a random thought and just like talking about whatever's on my mind, and that's very funny. Check that out. Also, just check me out on all platforms. My show's on all platforms and on YouTube. Please get them views up.
Yes.
Because every dime y'all submit have benefits to Black kids in my house. So we need those up. And also, man, just get me on Facebook at Eric Green / the Green Rose Foundation. And like I said, I'm a friendly guy. I'm always gonna talk back with you. And that's it, man.
Awesome. Hey guys, don't worry. Everything will be in the description below. You will be able to find them. Biggest things, guys, is please get those views up on YouTube. This is why, as podcasters, whether you're new or you're a little OG, you're still like you're an OG in the game, or whatever the case might be, like this is one of the reasons. This is part of the reason why we do it is for an audience, is for you all, and it helps when you actually view the content, you like the content, and especially on YouTube, subscribe to the content, because man, that means that's so as the ones producing the content. So hey guys, don't worry, all of this stuff will be in the description. I am Quan, the host of Mediocre Dads. As usual, it's been a great time, guys. Being mediocre is a choice. You have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. That's all I got. Perfect.